I'm still not entirely sure how to start this story because I never imagined I'd be sharing it with anyone. I'm a straightforward person by nature. I try to do the right thing, expecting others will do the same. Most of the time, that works out. But once in a while, you run into someone who flips your world upside down. That's exactly what happened when I was with Jenna. Before I met her, I'd been single for a while, focusing on my career at a software company. I had my own small place, a stable income, and a decent social life. I wasn't desperate for anything serious, but I was open to it if the right person came along. When I first saw Jenna, she was bartending at a local place I visited with friends. She had this warm smile and she slipped me her number along with my receipt. That boldness caught me off guard. We started texting, met for coffee, and things escalated quickly. We clicked over a mutual interest in music, and she seemed appreciative of my honesty. She claimed she was tired of games, and I believed her. We dated for 8 months, then moved in together. I'd never lived with a girlfriend before, but she insisted it would save money and bring us closer. The first few months were great. She was affectionate, curious about my work, and we had a good routine at home. Then she took a new job at a marketing firm, assisting a department head named Travis. I heard a lot about Travis, how he was smart, driven, and had big plans for her. I tried not to be jealous, but she started dressing differently and spending more time at the office. She'd come home late, looking distant. When I confronted her, she insisted everything was fine, that he was just a mentor. But my gut told me something was off. One night, she left her phone charging while she showered. A text popped up from Travis that read something about seeing her in that red dress again. I confronted her, and she admitted they'd been seeing each other for 2 months. She said she was drawn to his ambition. I felt like an idiot. She tried to apologize, but I told her to pack her things and leave. A few days later, she moved in with him. For a while, I felt utterly broken, but I refused to let it destroy me. I focused on my job, spent more time with friends, and slowly rebuilt my confidence. 2 years passed without any contact from her. I wasn't eager to date again, but I was getting back on my feet. I won't pretend the recovery was easy. During those first few months, I'd wake up in the night thinking I heard her voice or saw her shadow in the hallway. I'd replay our argument in my head, wondering if I could have handled it better. Friends would invite me out to distract me, and I'd smile, but inside, I was hollow. I tried to numb myself with work, picking up extra projects and volunteering for late shifts. Anything to keep my mind off what she did. Slowly, I learned to face the pain instead of running from it. I also leaned on my family. My parents lived a couple of hours away, and they'd always told me to visit any time. After the breakup, I drove over more often. My mom would cook huge meals thinking that feeding me was the solution to heartbreak. My dad offered quiet support. He'd take me fishing or just sit with me in the backyard, letting me talk when I was ready. I realized how lucky I was to have that safety net. A lot of people don't get that. The more I allowed myself to be vulnerable, the more I regained my strength. I tried dating casually during that period, but I couldn't shake the distrust. If a woman I met even hinted at secrecy, I'd back away. I wasn't proud of how suspicious I'd become, but I couldn't help it. Cheating leaves a mark, and I had to wrestle with the realization that not everyone is like Jenna. Some people truly value honesty. Therapy helped me see that I was lumping everyone into the same category. My therapist pushed me to be open about my fears, to communicate them instead of letting them fester. It was the only way to move forward. I still recall one moment, about 6 months after the breakup, when I got a text from an unknown number. It was a spam message, but my heart raced, thinking maybe Jenna was trying to contact me. That was the day I realized I had to let go of the hope that she'd apologize and beg me to forgive her. Even if she did, I wouldn't have believed her. You can't trust someone who tramples on your trust once they've found a better option. That was the turning point. I accepted that she was gone for good. I felt free. By the time the first year was over, I'd transformed in ways I never thought possible. I discovered new hobbies, tried rock climbing, and reconnected with old college friends. I realized that part of what made Jenna's betrayal so devastating was that my life had revolved around her. I'd lost myself investing too heavily in the idea of our future. Regaining my independence gave me a confidence boost. I took a chance on a small side business, designing apps for local clients. Although it was modest income, it taught me I could stand on my own, both emotionally and financially. Strangely enough, people who knew us both would sometimes drop hints that she wasn't as happy as she pretended to be. I'd see pictures of her and Travis online, all smiles, but I'd hear rumors that he was controlling, prone to jealousy. I never felt sorry for her at the time, just angry that she'd chosen him over me. Still, a small part of me wondered if she missed what we had. I pushed those thoughts aside, reminding myself that she was the one who betrayed me. If she was unhappy, that was her own making, not my concern anymore. I remember telling a friend that the worst part wasn't losing her, it was losing the faith I once had in love. It took many nights of self-reflection to understand that her betrayal didn't have to define my future. I could choose to remain bitter, or I could use it as a lesson. I'm not saying I became some enlightened sage overnight, but I did realize that life goes on, even when you think you've hit rock bottom. That's why, by the time she showed up asking for help, I was strong enough to handle it without falling apart. Then, one Saturday, she showed up at my apartment building. She looked frail, with dark circles under her eyes. She said she needed to talk. I hesitated, but I let her in. She told me how Travis ended up dumping her for someone else. On top of that, he fired her, leaving her unemployed. She was living in her car and had nowhere else to go. She begged me for financial help, claiming she finally realized her mistake. I stared at her, stunned by the audacity of her request. Part of me felt pity for how low she'd fallen. Another part of me remembered those lies she told and how she tore my heart apart. She swore she'd pay me back, that she'd learned her lesson. But I just looked at her and said, "You cheated on me and left. Why on earth would I help you?" She broke down sobbing, saying she had nobody else to turn to. I could see how desperate she was. I felt that old urge to be kind, but I also remembered my promise not to let anyone walk over me again. So I offered a potential deal. I said I needed time to think. Over the following days, she bombarded me with texts, asking if I'd made a decision. I stayed non-committal, but I was laying plans. I wanted to make her regret coming to me for a handout, and I wanted a measure of revenge. A mutual acquaintance confirmed her story about getting fired and blacklisted by Travis, so at least she wasn't lying about that. She really was broke and homeless, crashing in her car at night. I decided on a plan. I told her I'd give her enough money to cover a couple of months' rent under specific conditions. I demanded she sign an IOU, provide references, and post a public apology on social media about how she betrayed me. She looked horrified, but desperation won out. She agreed. That night, she posted a paragraph on her profile, admitting she cheated on me, saying how she'd made a terrible mistake that cost her everything. It wasn't long, but it was humiliating enough for her. I took screenshots, then told her to meet me at my lawyer's office the next day. She showed up, and we signed the paperwork. I handed her a check. She clutched it like it was her lifeline, tears in her eyes. I felt a twisted satisfaction, but I kept my face neutral. She left, probably relieved she'd found a soft spot in me. She had no idea I'd written strict clauses into the contract. Immediate default if she missed a single payment, with full legal authority to garnish her wages. At first, it seemed like she'd found a temporary apartment in a rough part of town. I heard she was applying for jobs, but her reputation had taken a hit. She missed her first payment deadline, so I filed a notice of default. She begged me for more time, but I said no. She scrambled and finally paid, but she was late again on the second payment. That's when I took her to court. My lawyer secured a judgment that allowed me to garnish any wages she might earn in the future. She accused me of ruining her life, but I felt no remorse. News spread among our old acquaintances. Some thought I was cruel, but most understood I was simply holding her accountable. She tried to move out of state to escape the judgment, but we tracked her down. The garnishment was valid wherever she went. She was running out of options. Last I heard, she was sleeping on a relative's couch, still unemployed. She blocked me on social media, probably out of spite. By then, I'd moved on emotionally. I was dating someone new, an honest, compassionate woman who treated me with respect. I told her what happened, and she supported me, though she warned me not to let bitterness consume me. I took her advice seriously. The legal proceedings were mechanical. The satisfaction I felt was more about knowing I'd refused to be a doormat a second time. People ask if I regret not forgiving Jenna. My answer is no. She betrayed me, and I had no obligation to come to her rescue. Offering her money under strict conditions was my way of protecting myself while letting her dig her own hole if she couldn't keep her promises. And that's exactly what happened. I don't lose sleep over it. I view it as a life lesson. Betrayal has consequences, and sometimes those consequences are delivered by the person you betrayed. I won't pretend it was the most gracious move, but it was honest. She demanded mercy, and I gave her a deal that was purely transactional. If she'd truly changed, she would have worked hard to meet the terms of the contract. Instead, she defaulted almost immediately. If she ever manages to repay me, I'll honor the agreement and leave her alone. But if not, I have every right to enforce the judgment whenever she tries to get on her feet. I might even let it go eventually, but that time hasn't come. For now, I've got closure. She can't claim I refused to help. I just helped on terms that guaranteed I wouldn't be left empty-handed again. These days, I don't think about her much. Sometimes I'll get a message from an old friend asking about the situation, and I'll just say it's settled. But if Jenna tries to reach out again, I won't even respond unless she's prepared to address her debt. There's no drama left, just a legal matter. And that's the way I like it. I know some people believe in forgiveness, but I believe in self-respect. She made a choice to cheat on me and walk away. Then she made another choice to come back when she was broke and had nobody else. I didn't turn her away, I just refused to let her exploit me again. If that makes me the bad guy in her eyes, so be it. My conscience is clear. People have asked if I feel any satisfaction knowing she got played by Travis and then dumped. I won't lie. I did feel a twinge of grim vindication. She left me for someone she believed was higher status, only to get tossed aside. That's a harsh reality check. But I didn't set out to push her further down. I simply held her to a standard of accountability she'd never experienced before. In some ways, I'm grateful. Because of this ordeal, I learned how to stand up for myself and not give in to manipulative tactics. I also learned that betrayal is a line I won't cross and won't tolerate. If someone betrays me, there are lasting consequences. It's not about revenge for revenge's sake. It's about not letting people think they can walk all over you without repercussions. I heard through the grapevine that she blames me for why she can't find decent employment. She accuses me of spreading rumors that make her look unhireable. In truth, I haven't gone out of my way to tarnish her name. I simply told the truth when asked. If recruiters see her public apology or learn about her questionable work history under Travis, that's on her. Actions have consequences. I don't know if she's still in town or if she's tried to slip away quietly. I haven't checked her social media since the day she blocked me. If I ever see her again, I doubt we'll have much to say. We might just walk right past each other, like strangers. I'm fine with that. Her chapter in my life is over. Since all this happened, I've been more cautious in relationships. I take things slowly, watching for red flags. My new girlfriend understands my history, and she's proven herself trustworthy time and time again. We have our share of disagreements, but nothing that shakes my faith in her character. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever fully trust someone again, but so far, I'm doing okay. When I look back, I realize I dodged a bullet. If Jenna hadn't cheated, we might have gotten married, and I'd have been tied to her long term. The breakup was painful, but it exposed her true nature before we made any irreversible commitments. Now, I'm free to be with someone who deserves my loyalty and affection. I don't harbor any illusions that I'm perfect. I had my flaws, probably worked too much, and might not have given her all the excitement she craved, but that never justified cheating. She had choices. She could have broken up with me honestly. Instead, she opted for sneaking around with her boss. That's on her, not me. If there's one takeaway I want people to get from this, it's that you don't owe unconditional forgiveness to someone who deliberately betrayed you. You can choose to walk away entirely, or you can make them face the consequences, but you don't have to give them a free pass. Sometimes the best you can do is stand firm and let them see what it feels like to be on the receiving end of their own choices. It might seem heartless to some, but I've found my peace. I'm not losing sleep over the legal steps I took. I'm not pondering ways to ruin her life. She's done a pretty good job of that on her own. All I did was make sure she didn't get a free ride from me. So that's my story. It isn't dramatic in a Hollywood sense, but it's real. My ex cheated on me with her boss, left me for him, got dumped herself, and came crawling back. I let her have a taste of my mercy, but strictly on my terms. She defaulted almost immediately, proving she hadn't changed at all. Now, I've moved on, and she's left with a debt she can't escape. I'm not interested in hearing her excuses anymore. I've spent enough energy on this already. My life is better now, filled with people who genuinely respect me. If Jenna had stuck around, maybe we could have built something great together. But she threw it away for a temporary thrill. That was her choice. And when she came back, I made mine. I'm content with how things turned out. I doubt she'll ever repay the full amount, but that was never really the point. The point was to establish boundaries and remind her that betrayal has a price. If she tries to rebuild her life, good for her, but she won't be rebuilding it with my unearned support. I gave her a lifeline and she sabotaged it. So when people ask if I forgive her, I say, no. Sometimes forgiveness isn't an option, especially when the betrayal was deliberate. She took my trust and spat on it. I won't pretend to be some saint. I'm just a guy who learned to protect himself and make sure no one ever uses him again. That's enough for me.